Please give a warm welcome to the lovely Professor Anita Hill.
Wow, this is just a wonderful evening. I want to thank Liz for that gracious introduction and generous introduction. And of course, I want to thank my good friend, Sylvia Farrell Jones, for her friendship of now almost 4 decades. We were in kindergarten when we met. And most importantly, for her inspired and visionary leadership of the Boston YW. Thank you. And I want to just say thank you, YW Boston, for believing in me. This is really an awesome role to play, the keynote for a program honoring and celebrating 150 years of service to this community. And I have to confess, and I'm sure many of you feel this way, that this has been a very difficult past couple of weeks. Glendora Putnam was also a board member, fellow board member with me on the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. It's a loss to the YW, it's a loss to the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. And I note on your film that Boston YW, when it opened its doors, or shortly after it opened its doors, it became a safe and supportive residence for lower income women, young women coming to the city, looking for a place that they could live and feel safe and secure. And as you know, I'm on a college campus. I'm on college campuses throughout the country, and ironically today, young women on college campuses are campaigning for safe and secure places to live and study. And they are doing so bravely. And the Stanford Byron Turner rape case painfully reminds us that their struggle, these young women's struggle, is real and that the stakes are very high. And the idea that an individual could serve 6 months for 3 counts of rape and sexual assault flies in the face of anything that I have ever understood to be justice. Our systems have failed us. And then, of course, this past weekend, violence on an unfathomable scale occurred in a gay nightclub in Orlando on Latino Night. And we are shaken once again to our core. Once again, violence enters our homes, it enters our thinking. But I'm here tonight because even in the face of gender and ethnic violence, the work that community institutions do goes on. It must go on. And even in the midst of our outrage and sorrow, we must not forget that the YW's model of empowering women and combating racism will help ensure safety and progress for all women, for racial and ethnic groups, as well as for sexual and gender identity minorities. That is the best model for ensuring justice and safety. And that is what let's remember tonight. And I think even in our pain, we can take comfort in knowing that there will be an institutional response, there will be a community response, and that it will reverberate throughout this country. The YW's mission is what we are here to celebrate tonight. And the more I think about this past week's events, the more I realize that it is as current, the mission is as current today as it was in 1866, 150 years ago. So when in my few minutes that I have to talk, and they gave me just a few minutes, and I would say, they said something like 10 to 12 minutes. They were, it takes a law professor 30 minutes to clear her throat. But that's okay. I'm going to try to make the most of my time. So I want to acknowledge this extraordinary milestone by just briefly discussing why the YW's work is so important today. To me as an educator, to me as an equality advocate, and is it so important to our youth, and particularly girls and young women. So last week, Catherine Lehman, Assistant Secretary of Education for Civil Rights, issued a report on the ongoing challenges to education equality. Girls of all races experience sexual harassment. It's ongoing sexual harassment and sexual bullying, and sometimes even sexual exploitation in schools. They experience disparities in access to STEM and other courses that provide the best opportunity for economic advances. African American girls experience out-of-school expulsions at a higher rate than any other group. And these expulsions have become a pipeline to the criminal justice system. So lots to say. Girls of color are the most likely to experience these lack of opportunities. The lack of opportunities that Title IX and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act are supposed to protect. But we are fortunate to have Catherine Lehman because she knows she's not only an impassioned advocate for equality, she knows that it's going to take all of us to change the statistics that she has issued in this report. And I like her words when she announced the report and talked about the challenges. What she said is that she urged educators, researchers, and the public to join the Department of Education in supporting students in realizing their full potential. Realizing their full potential. Now, you may say, okay, well, that's what everybody's dream is. That's what all education policy is about, students realizing their full potential, right? Well, I'm just going to indulge, if you will, indulge me in one pet policy peeve. If we were truly committed to every student realizing their full potential, we would not tolerate school funding that allows gross disparities from school to school, from rich communities to poor communities. Those disparities are built in our system. And if we were looking at everyone's full potential, we would find a way to change our funding system. But let me just go on to talk, because I think that Catherine Lehman is quite fortunate, because the YW of Boston is already engaging and in fostering and growing students' full potential. The YW's work encourages girls to dream big and then shows them how to meet their dreams. This combination of vision and practice resonates with me in part because of my own mother. Now, you already know that I am the youngest of 13 children. What you may not know is that my mother was born in 1911 in rural Arkansas, moved to rural Oklahoma, and was in school formally for only 6 years. Yet, even during a time of rampant race discrimination and open hostility to women's advancement, she preached that all of her 13 children should go to college. And she did preach, by the way. My mother went along, my father went along, my mother preached, my father went along with it. He wasn't quite sure that this made sense. After all, he was actually looking at the reality. And the reality was that there just were not many jobs for educated African Americans in the Jim Crow South. There were not many jobs, especially for educated African American women. But she convinced him, and he went along, and even most of my brothers and sisters heeded her advice. But what I like about my mother's story is that she started with her oldest child, who was a girl, sending her from our farm in 1945 to Langston University, then the Negro College in Oklahoma. There were few jobs for her, but my mother wasn't looking at the present. She wasn't looking at the limitations. She was looking forward to the future. She was looking to potential. She was looking to a future that might be brighter. And she was going to make sure that her children were prepared to fully participate in it when that day came. And so she scrimped and she saved from our family's meager earnings to make that brighter future possible. And in this, and in so many ways, she is my model. This woman who didn't go to college, didn't even finish high school, but she is my model as an educator, as a mentor, and really as a human being who gives everything for others. So today, because of social prejudices, language and immigration barriers, and other pressures, Latinas in particular are struggling just to finish high school. They have one of the highest high school dropout rates. That is the statistic. That is the current situation. But what you may not know is that 80%, according to a survey conducted by MALDAF and National Women's Law Center, 80% want to finish college and do graduate work. That's the potential we're talking about. That's the dream that they have. And the YW's programs in health, civic engagement, leadership, and social justice can help them see the possibilities of realizing their dreams and show them, like my mother did, that in our community, demographics are not destiny. So let me just talk about a few of the areas that really resonate so much with me in my work. First, the leadership area. 11% of girls participate in student government. 11% nationally, all girls. 11%. Now, they're 50% of the student body, but they're 11%. Now, but 35% of girls want to be leaders in their communities and schools. And that number goes up to 75% for African American girls. That is the potential, I say. With the youth leadership programs that Sylvia talks about, when young women learn skills and knowledge to move their communities to real solutions, as far as informed leaders, to help leaders to understand themselves how economics, gender, ethnicity, race, immigration status, and environmental factors negatively impact full democratic and economic participation. To help us to understand how these are impediments that really rob all of us in our communities of talent and resources. YW youth are not only ready when they go through the leadership programs, are not only ready for student government, I would say, and Mr. Jackson, you can correct me, I would say they're probably ready for city and state leadership. But just as important, this training gives them a better understanding of the external factors that influence their personal choices. This training will help them understand the importance of their own education, as well as education generally in their community. This spring, I had the privilege of teaching grad students who will go into internships, full-time jobs, and do dissertation work on economic justice, education policy, food justice, health equity, immigration, and equities in the criminal legal system. But guess what? Youth in the YW programs are already engaged in experiential learning about these critical topics in social justice. These are the very issues that my grad students are covering. And these teens are ahead of the game. Now, I can't just enroll them in grad school, I wish I could, but I know that they will be ready when they get to grad school. And fortunately, so do they. They know they're going to be ready. They are going to be going into school with the confidence that they have researched these issues, they've worked on these issues, they know what the challenges are. The health program is another area that I see the real connection between girls' educations and health choices. Girls really, it was striking that the young woman in the film said that she's sort of reticent, that she is most likely to not speak out. And part of this has to do with self-esteem. Part of that reticence has to do with self-esteem. But what the research says is that if girls understand their own bodies, have their own self-awareness, have their own understanding of their bodies, and that they have greater self-esteem. And this has been documented. In fact, there was a recent study of girls globally that said that the programs that provide health education show a high success rate and high rates of private and social return on investment. And that investment gets passed on intergenerationally, encouraging better choices about school and careers. So the connection between the wise work and what Catherine Lehman urged and what I do is clear to me. We at the Y, and I'll say we because we're all part of it tonight, are informing and training and encouraging and providing resources for young people to reach their full potential, their full educational potential, their full social potential, and their full political potential. Now, I know we can't control the future for all of our youth, but for a moment, I would just allow you to, if you do have any skepticism, I just want you to imagine with me what the future might be. So, first of all, I'd like you to envision commencements of the future. Graduation ceremonies, we're in that season now. Scores of college and university graduates of color march across the stage, not just as first in their generation to graduate, but these individuals now, these students are marching across the stage as third, fourth, fifth, and beyond of their generation to graduate with a higher ed degree. That is what the future looks like to me. They will go on to be industry leaders who will open the doors for even greater inclusion and diversity than we imagine in our generation. And they will go on to solve the problems of economic inequality. So picture this. One day, there may be a US Congress that is 75% female instead of 75% or greater male. That has been the case throughout our history. Or imagine that women, including women of color, are routinely Secretary of Education and President of the United States, making policy decisions that invest in and benefit entire communities, including and especially the historically marginalized. And when those new grads, employers, elected or appointed officials, or Nobel laureates acknowledge their achievements, whatever they are, each begins by saying, "I'd like to thank the YW of Boston for believing in me." There's a saying that there are two lasting gifts we can give our children. One is roots and the other is wings. The 150-year history of the YW is the roots. Its present-day works provides the wings. Tonight, we celebrate the YW's monumental achievements toward its twin goals of empowering women and eliminating racism. And I know that at some point, and maybe even today, those goals were laughed at. People throughout history probably thought they were impossible. So let's tonight commit to believing in the impossible. Let's believe in the future, the potential of every child in this community. Sylvia says she reaches 3,000 every year. Was that right? That's just the seed. That number is multiplied over and over again. But we also have to commit to the 21st century strategies for achieving the impossible. And that recommitment starts right here with our commitment to the YW of Boston. Congratulations on 150 years of great work and great leadership in the future. Thank you.